Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining, everybody. Oh man, I'm excited to get into today's topic. So, this is one of the questions that has come up in chat a few times now, mostly from the same person. But they kept asking me, what type of tastings do I do when I host tastings at my house? Like, what's the format? What's the flow? What's the strategy? So, I wanted to get into some of the things that I contemplate when I have guests over and have them over for a whiskey tasting. So, in today's video, we'll go over essentially 5 strategies that I have, and then I'm very interested to hear what your strategies are in the comments. So, thanks for joining, everybody. Let's kick off the show. All right. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. Man, I don't know if anybody else heard that, but I like choked over myself on the intro. That was really awkward. So, while I'm going through this, I'm going to be sipping on the hard truth, the caramel malt. Man, I think this is my favorite one of all the hard truths. And I could do a whole tasting of hard truths if I wanted to. Maybe that's a strategy that I'll get into. So, on today's video, once again, the premise of this discussion for this Whiskey Tuesday is the fact that I have been talking about hosting a party at my house on the weekend and having people over. And I continue to get questions on, well, what's the format? How do you strategize on it? What are you serving them? So I wanted to go over some of the strategies that I have. All of these are dependent on the audience that'll be at the party. I have tried each and every one of these strategies to varying success levels. So it's more or less picking the strategy that fits the moment. So number one, just imagine real quick, you got a whiskey tasting, it's at your place, and you are in control of a lot of the variables. You're in control of the amount of people that are coming over. You know the audience, you know who's coming over, you know where they are on their whiskey journey, etc. So, strategy number one is to create a completely scripted tasting. And that would essentially mean that you are picking the pours one by one. Like you are not deviating from the path. You are essentially saying, this is going to be the first pour. This is going to be the second pour. This is going to be the third pour. And you are essentially going through that tasting and probably talking in between the moments about what people are drinking. As you're hosting it, you are really emceeing that. So this is pour number one. This is what you could expect from pour number one. These are the type of tasting notes you can expect from pour number one. Let's sample pour number one. Let's talk about pour number one. Let's move on to pour number two. You really got that thing spread out and scripted out. And there's really no deviating from the path, at least until the end of the night. But if you are completely scripting any type of tasting situation, I mean, you can only take people through so many tastings until they've hit their limit, right? Like maybe 3 pours, maybe 4 if you're only giving them 3/4 of an ounce. You just got to be careful on that. And you got to keep in mind how much time you have within that tasting. Scenario 2, and we're going to come back to this one later on, but it's essentially just a open bottle share moment. I do want to kind of put a tab onto that one, but the general premise is nothing scripted. Here's a whole bunch of bottles on the table. Please go try things that you're interested in. Go try things you haven't tried before. But let's put a pin in that one for now because that one can get a bit more complicated and or fluid. The third type of one is going to be suggested pours. So more of a choose your own adventure. So in this case, I typically highlight 3 bottles that are my suggested pours of the evening to fit whatever theme. I will lay those out, and I've even gone as far as to creating sheets of paper with tasting notes on them for those 3 pours, and given those pieces of paper out and said, hey, you're open to try anything, but if you don't know where to go, I suggest that you start with these three and you walk through them in this order. And a lot of the times when people do that, they pick the first one, they pick the second one, and then by that point in time, everybody's talking, everyone's mingling, and they're off path. So the suggested pour thing helps because people don't know where to start if you leave it completely open ended. And this enables you to be able to give them suggested pours without having to hold all these individuals' hands throughout the experience. Because if you don't give people a path, and that goes back to scenario number two. You do the open bottle share amongst people who don't know what they're looking at. They don't know where to start. So then you're just walking around the entire party and people are just asking you, what should I drink? What should I drink next? What should I do now? Here it is. It's suggested pours, and I've got them all focused right in the middle of the table. The fourth one, now this is once again picking your audience, of course, because at this point, you're probably talking about people that are really into whiskeys. Host a blind, be in control of it, MC the thing, and have some fun. Pour out 4 blinded pours. You can even pour it into sample glasses to start so that no one can see the bottles whatsoever. Why not pour all those out into 1 ounce sample bottles, have them out on the table? You know how many people are coming. Just pour them out and say, hey, everybody, get a flight. Let's do this. Now, the blind flight doesn't have to be any type of competition that you see us do sometimes. Just have people taste them, talk about them, see what they like and they don't like. That can be the most interesting thing with these blinds. And one thing that I do like to do within that specific scenario, and this goes across people that may be all across their bourbon experiences, I like to put in things of different types. Put in a weeder, put in something that's rye, put in something that's high rye, put just a straight rye in there. Let them explore it and see if they can articulate what they like and what they don't like, and have them rank them by the end. And sometimes you'll get to the point where you'll get people to taste things blind and they'll really appreciate it. They'll be like, oh man, I really like this one versus this one. What was that? You're like, you like weeded whiskeys. You should try XYZ then. And that gives you some better conversations then to steer them towards things they can buy on their own. Now, more often than not, I kind of combined the scenario of option two, which was a straight bottle share, and option one, that was a scripted evening. Combine those two, and this one I call the icebreaker. So rather than scripting all the pours of the night, script the first one and just get people started, just wet their palates, get them all started on the same page, and find a way to get them talking. So essentially, I would usually start with something that's lower proof, something around 90, 94. I mean, we're talking about Woodford Double Oak or Maker's 46 or just something more than the basic level. Get them talking, get them chatting about it, get them describing it. What are you tasting? What are you not tasting? Get them mingling. But ultimately, you're starting with a shared experience. And if your audience doesn't know each other, then that's the icebreaker. Who liked this? Did anyone not like it? Why did you not like it? You get people talking, you get people chatting, you break the tension, and then you say, hey, bottle share the rest of the night. Now, with the bottle share example, though, there are two ways to go about it. A, you got a bottle share where it is completely your collection, you are in control. And if you're doing that type of thing where you are giving people free reign over your collection, I got a lot of tips for you. A, have varying proof points throughout that collection. Because once again, knowing your audience, you might have very varying degrees of audience members who are different points in their whiskey journey. They need different proof points. So everything from 80 all the way to barrel proof. You may not buy Basil Hayden yourself. This is a scenario where it might be good to have Basil Hayden in your collection so that you can share it in this exact scenario because somebody in that party is really going to appreciate it. And they might take Basil Hayden and they might even put it on rocks. Guess what? That is perfectly fine. They are going to enjoy themselves. Let them enjoy themselves where they are at their whiskey journey, and they may not be used to proof at all. But the opposite end of the spectrum, you may have people that are under barrel proofs, and you may have people that are into allocated pours as well. I do, in this scenario, tend to not put anything too special, too limited, too allocated out on the table. I want people to just feel comfortable grabbing any bottle they want. if they put ice in it, if they pour 3 ounces of that thing, I don't want there to be any type of heartache within myself. I put it out there. It is free reign, and free reign means they can do what they want to it. Now, within that, that's where then I am careful of the bottles that I put out there, all the varying proof points, how rare it is, how special it is, how hurt I would be if somebody just poured literally half the bottle into a glass and then poured Coke into it. Probably not a good bottle to put out there if I'm going to feel that way. The other type of bottle share party that is also very common is everyone brings bottles. Now, in that scenario, what I have seen myself is I am so excited about sharing, let's say, a dozen bottles with the people that are coming over. Guess what? They are just as excited to share a dozen bottles with all the other people that are coming over. And you end up with a party that has way too many bottles for too many people, or for not enough people. So, in that scenario, that's perfectly fine, right? Like everyone wants to share. That is a great environment to be in. Just try to set the tone at the front of that type of environment to remind people not to be heavy handed. I've even gone to the extent of getting a marker and showing people on the Glen, like, this is what 3/4 of an ounce looks like. And you should really be pouring nothing else if you want to enjoy as many pours as you can throughout the X amount of hours that we have together. Because ultimately, what I find sometimes is we have these open-ended bottle share parties where people bring so much stuff and people are just heavy-handed. They'll pour like 2 ounces on their first pour or something. Like everything they pour is 2 ounces. You can't do that. That's gonna blow you out within a couple hours. Like, come on, that's just gonna destroy you. So remind people that though. I feel like making them conscious of it helps out quite a bit because some people don't even realize what is 2 ounces, 1 ounces. They're just doing muscle memory, or they're just doing a little flip there and counting a second, and a lot comes out. So if you're gonna go with that type of party, just remind people, like, pace yourself. Don't be heavy-handed. We've got so many hours. You can only have so many pours. There's only so much time in the day. Take your time and enjoy this experience here. And just that little bit of reminder might make people mindful, at least for the first half of the tasting, that they don't get heavy-handed in any given pour. I think I poured that thing at the start, and that's the very first sip of it I took. Gosh, that is delicious, though. I love the caramel malt. So that was 5 different types of parties that I have. Once again, that is all dependent on the audience. Whether I script it, whether I leave it open-ended, whether I do something in between, whether it's all of my bottles, whether it's a collective of bottles that everyone is throwing in. You can play with all those different strategies. Now, if you've never done this before and you don't know what your audience likes, hey man, just do the scripted one. Just say 3 pours. Come to my place. We're going to drink some whiskey. I got 3 things I want you to try. Now, if you do that one and you take that suggestion, just have enough of those to last the party because each bottle can only go so far. So, depending on the amount of people that you have, may dictate whether you can fully script that or not, or you might have to go out and buy multiples of the bottle, which maybe starts defeating the purpose. But hopefully that answers the question there. I would love to hear in the comments what you do for your bottle parties, tastings, how you host them, what's your go-to strategy, and what are your go-to bottles. Well, thank you for joining me today, whiskey friends. I'll catch you later, everybody. Bye, everybody.